Okay, all right. So weapons of warfare activity. What two interesting weapons or technology did you stumble across? Kara?
What was the question?
The two at the bottom of the activity?
I found guide dogs.
Guard dogs or what? Guide dogs. What do you mean?
It says they like smell like the gas before the soldiers thing. And
Ooh,
then they carry the first aid around them for when the soldiers find anybody. And
awesome. Good job. Good job. So utilizing dogs to advantage on the battlefield. Yeah, they can pick up the smells of the chemical warfare, maybe in the trenches before the soldiers could. Awesome. Awesome. Even at night, right? When the soldiers are trying to sleep, maybe in the front trench, picking up some of those whiffs of the chemicals, alerting them soldiers so they could evacuate or prepare to put their gas masks on. Awesome. Good job. What other one do we come up with? Griffin?
I put wristwatches because I like
Whoa, good one. Yeah, good one. Yeah, we take it for granted what the wristwatch can actually help us with, and obviously time. And when you're on the battlefield in the trenches, time is crucial, and it's important that strategies, plans, whatever it's a siege or an attack, let's say on the enemy trench, you need to make sure you're on the same time, same pace as the rest of your soldiers. All right, good job, good work. That's something interesting. Kale?
I had like the new heavy guns.
Okay, all right. Okay, yeah, good job, good job. So Civil War, Revolutionary War, kind of just wore these uniforms that would match with everybody. And in World War One, it's more strategic, I guess, camouflage, right? And maybe applying some armor, Kevlar, I guess, early versions of it. Just really thick clothing. That's about it. And World War One. Yeah, good job. So maybe protect the soldiers a little bit more from these heavy machine gun fires or these rifles. Sarah? Explosives. Okay. Blowing stuff up. All right. Cassidy?
I have technology.
Oh.
Heal the injured soldiers and
Yeah, good job. So treatments in the medical field, World War One being a little bit more applied. Okay, in Civil War, if there's ever an injury, let's say the leg or arm, they just chop it right off. Yeah, World War One, it's like, okay, maybe we need to use some of our sciences to our advantage. Get these soldiers back on the battlefield. Good, good. One more here, one more. Noah? Are you kidding? You're not even following along back there. I tell you what. Eddie, do you have any?
Tracer bullets.
What's that?
Tracer bullets.
Tracer bullets. Good job. Good job. So at night, it's important to see where your fire is going, and even during the daytime. Okay, and trying to keep a streamline of an attack, especially with these machine guns. Okay, they're firing rounds, really hundreds of them a minute. So it's important to know exactly where your fire is going, especially at night. Okay, so these tracer bullets, a lot of times it'd be every fourth or every fifth round. So in World War II, you guys ever see the movie Glory with Brad Pitt? Yeah, the tank movie. Okay, those tracers, there's 5 bullets actually in between each one of those tracers. So you can imagine how fast these shells are really flying out, right? And it's pretty unbelievable if you think about it. So tracers, good job, good work. All right, so I think for the most part, we talk about a lot of the forms of technology in World War One. Okay, it's interesting to know, like towards the end of the war, using radios to help communicate with one another on the battlefield. But before that, guess what the soldiers used? To send strategies and plans far distances. Tanner? Yeah, carrier pigeons. Can you imagine that? Hoping that the bird would just get to your location that you wanted, the design location, with just a letter written on its leg. That is ridiculous, isn't it? But anyway, that was just how far we've came in short 4 years when this war was really initiated, when it was started. Good job. Again, turn those assignments in. I'm going to grade them. I see some people typing, so it might seem like maybe we can get them fully done already at the start of class. Shame. All right. Bell ringer for today. Again, we're going to dive into viewpoints of World War I in the United States. No, I don't want psychology here. So if you were President Wilson, which we all know he was president of the United States during World War I, what side of the war would you join? The Allied powers or Central? Think of the European population in the US before the war occurred. Let's say immigrants. There we go. Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, what did he research? Awards given. All right, give me another minute to finish up. All right, so President Wilson, pretty sure I talked about him already within this chapter, really the start of the war. I'll have him as a vocab term tomorrow, so then you can write him down in your vocab and again, prepare for the exam. All right, so if you're President Wilson, what side of the war would you join? The Allied powers or the Central? Tanner?
I would have joined the Allies still,
What? Why?
mainly because after Germany failed to push into France, they were basically guaranteed peace. And even then, when Germany asked Mexico to go to war with the U.S., I think that was the final straw.
All right, so you're getting ahead of it here. So yeah, good job with the Zimmerman telegram, with unrestricted submarine warfare. We'll talk about that more probably tomorrow, next week. The United States only had one option. It was to join the Allied powers. And the reason was because Germany was destroying a lot of their ships, a lot of their cargo ships, really aiding the Allied powers, and some actually going to the Central powers. So we'll talk today. The United States kind of was a hypocrite at first. They wanted peace. They wanted to see the war end. But at the same time, the United States was making a lot of money off of this war, off of this conflict. So in all reality, do you think they wanted this conflict to end, Griffin? No, not at all. They just saw the money coming their way as they're aiding both sides of the war. How crazy is that, right? You can't really trust the United States then if you're on the Allied powers or Central powers. So Germany, once this war is becoming prolonged, we'll talk about this, like I said, tomorrow, next week. They decide, well, we'll just destroy the supplies coming to the Allied powers, right? And with that being said, it's targeting American ships, killing American citizens, right? Civilians. So the United States only had one option. But why is this question being brought up? What do you think, Griffin?
The U.S. spent a high number of German.
Yeah, good job. Good job. I know I mentioned that before. With the German population, these immigrants coming to the United States, specifically in central PA, all right, there is a lot of German heritage, right? Ancestry. And Woodrow Wilson had to make a tough decision. It's like, oh, well, we're going to jump on the Allied power side. Well, if we do that, there's going to be a huge, maybe uprising in the United States. There might be rebellions all across the U.S., specifically in PA, right? Over our, what side of the war we join. And that was something hard for Wilson to try to manage. And same thing, let's say they jump on the Central powers. Well, they're going to anger a lot of people that have ancestry that links back to, let's say, France, Great Britain, right? Russia. Who knows? Who knows? Because we talked about in chapter 1, we had about 9 million immigrants from Europe coming over the United States during that industrial age. And even more so when we get to World War I. That number would ramp up to 15 million. So that's a lot of people, right? And if that happens, if we join the wrong side, let's say, there could be a huge uprising in the US. That, yeah, we might be fighting a war over in Europe, but we're going to also be fighting a war internally in the US. So again, that was a sticky situation for President Wilson. And we'll talk a little bit of how he combats against that. In some cases, he actually restricts freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, and which angers a lot of Americans. Let's face it, you take away the freedoms or you infringe on their freedoms, look out. That's why there's a lot of conflict today, right? Yeah, okay. So is there any questions on the bell ringer? So again, this is where we're moving into, okay? And Wilson comes up with a different idea. It's like, you know what? Let's just stay out of the war, but at the same time, let's profit off of it. But again, making some enemies along the way. It's like, how can you trust the US if they just are really being warmongers here? All right, vocab terms for today. And dive into these terms here today. We got interventionists, internationalists, isolationists, and the U.S. neutrality. So when you're searching these terms, maybe put in reference of World War I, okay? In reference of World War I. So these are the three main viewpoints of the war in the U.S. and what the U.S. decides to do really at the start of the war. Bless you. You don't have to travel on that. I'm good. Oh. What do you do then, just to finish it off, go back over it? Yeah. Oh, yeah. 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 Well, yesterday I was following I was thinking whoa. You going on that show? There.
Yeah.
All right. I think
The
I'm
guy
gonna
who was supposed to wrestle, I guess he was like really good, like he got surgery when I was getting.
Oh, really? Yeah, I'm gonna go tonight. I'm excited. I'm excited. I wanted to go last week, but he had a forfeit.
Yeah, I was kind of disappointed.
Yeah. All right, let's get to it here. Interventionists. Interventionists. What viewpoint of the war in the United States is this? What do they want? What do we think here? Cassidy? All right, yeah, good job. Good job. So interventionists, they thought, well, we need to get involved in this war. If we don't, we might be neutral Belgium, right? If this happens, well, we're going to be the next country that's going to be invaded by Germany once they defeat the Allied powers over in Europe. We can't let the fight get to the United States, right? We can't let this battle, this conflict, this war occur in the US. And Teddy Roosevelt actually talked about this a lot. He wrote many articles, books, and we know who Teddy Roosevelt is already, previous president. He was pretty much downing President Wilson. We all know that he lost that election to him in 1912. But really, his viewpoints of the war is like, we got to get involved. If we don't, the war is going to happen here in the United States. And we really want to make sure that doesn't happen. With these new forms of weaponry, this would really destroy what we have going on here in the United States in the early stages of industrialization. All right, internationalists. Gage, what do you have for internationalists?
Did you just call him Gage?
Oh,
There's no
Gabe.
Gage in this.
Gabe, sorry. I was singing Gage. I saw him earlier this morning walking down the hall. I'm sorry. Huh?
Did you say international?
Internationalists. Yeah.
The cooperation among nations for the promotion of their common good.
Okay. All right. So seeking peace, right? So hopefully ending this war peacefully, but at the same time, the United States is going to make a big sum of money off of it. So, in most part, just staying out of it, but trying to assert peace. Hopefully, finding some sort of resolution to the conflict, but making a lot of money off of the war. So we kind of see which angle we go with. And then isolationists, what do we have here? Chloe? Yeah, good job. So staying isolated, staying far away from the conflict. We're all the way across the Atlantic Ocean. So why do we need to get involved in this war? Why do we need to send troops, armaments, supplies? Well, we're already doing the armaments and supplies, but why do we send troops over to fight this war in Europe? We're so far away. This war probably won't ever get to the US, so why get involved? And finally, US neutrality. That's what we're going to focus on today, and how the United States is going to try to stay out of this war for the most part, but still make a large sum of money off of it. Okay, very, very much looking hypocritical. Okay, so let's get to it today. Those are the terms. I like political cartoons, so you're gonna see a lot of them, and one of your activities for tonight is gonna be a political cartoon. Sorry. Oh, all right, so three different groups emerged in the US. We have the isolationists. Well, stay out of the war. Okay, plain and simple. There's no real reason the United States should get involved. We're all the way across the Atlantic Ocean. We're so far separated from these European countries. We don't need to really get involved in this action. So say totally out of the war, not even sell any goods. Okay, not even sell any armaments or supplies. Just totally cut ourselves off from this conflict. And let's face it, after this war, whoever comes out on top is probably going to take a huge impact. Yeah, they're going to become stronger later down the road in many years to come. But their businesses, their industries are all destroyed. Their manpower really is decimated. So who's going to come out on top then? Well, the United States, because all these countries are really taking it out on each other. Interventionists join the Allies, okay, so join up on the war. We all know that Germany's becoming a dominant world power. Okay, the United States needs to continue to rise as a world power as well. And the only way we can prevent this war from happening in the United States is if we fight over in Europe. Okay, so we need to make sure that this war is contained in Europe. Okay, we need to make sure it doesn't get to the United States. So interventionists, like I said, Teddy Roosevelt was huge in this viewpoint because he believed with what happened to Belgium. Neutral Belgium took the blunt of the war. Really, the Western Front ripped through Belgium, okay, because Germany's attack with the Schlieffen Plan. We talked about that already. And if the United States doesn't step up, if we don't send troops over to Europe to try to prevent the expansion of Germany, well, sooner or later, right, this war is going to happen in the US. And right around this time, Teddy Roosevelt saying this is when Russia is getting pulled out of the war. Okay, we'll talk about the Russian Revolution and how Russia is actually dropping out of the conflict. So what does that do? It eases up the two-front war, right? Now Germany can focus all of its attention on the Western Front. And Great Britain, France, they can't hold off Germany by themselves. So the United States needs to step up. All right, internationalists, their main goal, this idea, was to try to hope that the war ends peacefully, that eventually this conflict would subdue. But at the same time, we're going to make a large portion of money off of it. Right around this time period, moving up into 1914, because of the war, really, the US is becoming the strongest industrial power in the world, and even agricultural. So it just goes to show how much the United States grew in just a short time right after the Civil War. So the industrial gains, the profits, the agricultural gains as well, it was really unmatched all around the world. We all know Europe, these countries are very small. They have limited resources. The United States, on the other hand, pretty large. And as we're expanding out into the Pacific, the Caribbean Sea, the resources were endless. And we had the best of both worlds. We had industrialization as well, just like these European countries. So our advancements, along with the resources that we had, compared to these European countries, and let's face it, the war kind of decimated a lot of the European production. Well, the US is rising even more as a world power. So why not just continue that? Why not make more money, obviously? Why not grow on our industrial gains and keep our citizens working? All right, so Wilson's neutrality. So like I said with the bell ringer, the start of class, this was one burden on President Wilson, probably the biggest one ever. Okay, at this point, the United States really didn't get involved in European conflicts and world affairs. Yeah, the Spanish-American War. But the Spanish-American War ended what? How long did that war last? 6 months, right? Yeah, just a half a year. And there really wasn't that too many battle deaths. And it's not like we were traveling over to Europe and combating against one of these dominant industrial threats. It was just Spain. They were declining as a world power, right? So Wilson had to really be smart about his decision. Okay, a lot of the United States citizens really particularly weren't interested in getting involved in this war in Europe. Okay, they didn't think that we could compete with these European powers like, let's say, Germany. Okay, so Wilson understood too that we're a melting pot. We have immigrants, we have ancestry, we have cultures all around the world in the United States. So if we join the wrong side, well, this could be This could be, to a point, groundbreaking. This could be terrible for the U.S. moving forward, as there could be internal attacks, rebellions, revolts occurring all over the U.S. and in these large major cities, even in the rural areas. A lot of the population still resolve and were located and focused in these rural settings. But one of the biggest things, like I said, German Americans, okay, all throughout Pennsylvania, okay, especially this ancestry deep in their culture. If we would join, let's say, the Allied powers, who knows what type of attacks could occur? And we'll talk, like I said, later about really how President Wilson is going to constrict this assembly, the freedom of speech of these German ancestry, these German immigrants. Okay, and these people literally were stripped of their freedoms. Many of them thrown into jail for no reason. Okay, not allowed to join groups that were associated with their German culture, and even language. Okay, like sauerkraut, just simple as that, was changed to Liberty cabbage. It's like, what? This is crazy, right? This is crazy. But it just goes to show the fear, the paranoia that Wilson and the United States had over these internal threats if we join the wrong side. All right, but the last point here, Wilson thought, well, we can really seek an advantage. We can grow even more as an industrial power if we just open up our trade not only to the Allied powers, but to the Central powers. All right, and this is going to be groundbreaking for the US. This is going to be elevating the United States even more as this world power. Yeah, the Spanish-American War, we're focused as a world power after that win, but even more so with our industrial progress, our advancement as a technological power, okay, and agriculture as well. Okay, not only were we just focused on industry, but agriculture. Okay, we were becoming the most dominant world industrial power at that time, thanks to World War One. All right, here is a political cartoon, and this artwork might look familiar to you. Anybody know who drew this? It says it, the bottom corner here. Dr. Seuss, look at that. Yeah, this is more towards World War II, but the same idea comes about in World War One. All right, so with U.S. neutrality, okay, the United States wanted to make it a main focus that the U.S. could not get involved in this war. And the main reason was, well, we don't want to try to fight this war in Europe. If we do, who knows what could happen? Right, we might not be as near as advanced as these other European countries, and we really weren't. We'll talk about the battlefield and how the United States really wasn't comparable to some of these countries that had chemical warfare, tanks, airplanes. Right, this was all new to the U.S. This new style of fighting in trench warfare. But the U.S. again wanted to try to focus on neutrality. Right, stay out of the war, but make large sums of money off of it. But like I mentioned before, what does that view the U.S. as to our allies? As what? Hypocrites. Yeah, good job. Hypocrites. It's like, how can we aid both sides of the battle? Right? When it comes down to it, if we ever in a conflict and we need help or benefit from our allies, well, who knows if we'll get it? Because we were viewed as hypocrites at that time. Anyway, these political cartoons, I think, really show and express U.S. neutrality. Again, this is more towards World War II with Dr. Seuss, really illustrating these forms of propaganda. He was big into propaganda leading up to World War II, but this pertains a lot to this First World War as well, as we're trying to stay neutral, stay out of the conflict. All right, here's another political cartoon that I like. All right, with the United States trading to both Central powers and Allied powers, and even neutral countries, it came to a point where these forces had no idea who to trust, right? They didn't know if the United States was becoming more of an ally or an enemy. And this leads Germany into thinking of something crucial, right? It's like, oh, well, we see the supplies coming over to Europe. The only way Great Britain and France is surviving this war is by the United States aid and funding and supplies. So what do you think Germany does to these supply ships coming across the Atlantic? What do you think, Griffin? Destroys them. Yeah, exactly. And we all know there might be ships with citizens on, US citizens. So this is an attack against the United States. And this is leading towards US involvement even more towards the Allied powers. But here's another great political cartoon here, the internationalist viewpoint. So Uncle Sam walking around, peace on earth, goodwill towards men. Yeah, we want to see this conflict end. But on the other side, war ammunition for sale, orders filled promptly. And that's exactly the viewpoint of the US at this time, building up to World War I. All right, so again, the war started in 1914. The US profited heavy on selling to both sides of the conflict up until its involvement in 1917. All right, so the US wouldn't join until really 3 years into this war. And the war ends in 1918. So in all reality, the US was only involved 1 year into the conflict. But up until the US involvement, we were very hypocritical. We were selling to both sides. And why not? We're making a lot of profit off of it and building up our industrial centers. All right, is there any questions on it? You guys good with the viewpoints in US? Yeah? What are they again? 3 of them. Real quick, what were they? Barbara, what's one of them? Interventionist, good job, wanting to get involved in the conflict before it happens in the US. What's another one, Chloe? Isolationist, good job. So staying isolated, staying out of the conflict. Okay, we're all the way across the Atlantic Ocean. No need to get involved in the war. Last one. Go ahead, Tanner. Internationalist, good job. And this was what we did, really building up to our involvement in the war. Selling to both sides, but hoping and praying that this peace will happen. In all reality, we wanted this war to continue on in Europe, and hopefully it never gets to the US, but making large sums of money off of it. All right, any questions? Okay, here's the assignment for tonight. Again, it's just a political cartoon. Make sure you have your weapons of warfare activity turned in. I'm going to grade that, some of them right now. Yep, 25 points is a big one. So hopefully you cited your sources and hopefully you didn't copy and paste.
Did you see I put that little?
I did, yeah. Thanks a lot. Yeah, thanks a
That
lot.
was for the website.
Yeah. Oh, the sources, yeah, I mean, that's okay, but the information now. Okay, so US neutrality, just published it now. Right down here. And you can see this attached here, the questions at the bottom. All right, here's the cartoon. Should I keep this up on the board for you guys to reference from? Okay, I'll do that. So here's what we're looking at here. Uncle Sam. Oh man, he doesn't know what to do. Oh, bayonets. Yeah. Pretty much, yeah. They're like mounted on the end of a rifle or gun and you march across no man's land and stab who's ever in your way. All right, you know what to do here. So start working. This is due tomorrow. I'm going to keep this up on the board for you so you can work on it.